Hi guys, it's Jay and welcome back to my channel, and today we are starting a brand new read-along, and it is for the disabled Tyrant and his beloved pet fish. That is such a mouthful. If there's like a shortened version of it equivalent to Urha, please drop it in the comments because I can't be saying that title every single time we're here. But anyway, I am glad but very nervous to be back because it feels like it's been forever since I've had a read along and forever since we've had one here on the channel. Hi! And also, unfortunately, I won't be able to do Thursdays live. I'm thinking of having it on Friday. We have a concert that we are going to that I'm very excited about. So, yeah, probably gonna move that one out to Friday, and then we might shift the times around a little bit for the upcoming streams. I'm thinking of making it maybe like a few hours earlier, or alternatively making it a bit later, but that will be havoc on my sleep schedule, so I'd prefer earlier. Anyway, okay, so with all of that said, we are going to be starting on volume 1 of it. I have it here with me, and I forgot to link it in the description. I will fix that for next time. But yeah, I'm quite excited for this one because I heard it's quite funny. I have absolutely no idea what I'm getting myself into, like none. So we're just gonna go with it. I am not the best reader at the best of times, but I'm especially a little bit clunky at the start when I'm still trying to figure out what the writer's voice and pacing and things like that is. So please bear with me. I hope you guys will still enjoy it. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Janae. I do read-alongs, mostly of Janae, and we're going to be taking a 10-minute break on the hour, or around about the hour. I think that covers it. And I have tea with me, which I will occasionally be gulping down. Hi! So yeah, that's it. I think we're good. I can't think of anything else to say. I hope you guys have been surviving. Sorry to kind of drop you guys for quite a few weeks, but I didn't anticipate how much the situation with the channel would affect my routine and kind of knock me off balance a little bit. So anyway, yay little fish. Oh goodness. I think we can basically get started. So let me just grab some tea and we can get going. Okay. So I have Urha should be on the way at some point soon. So if it comes while we're still busy with this one, I'll be doing them in tandem. So we'll say, for example, do Beloved Pet Fish on Tuesdays and then Urha on Thursdays until I'm done with Beloved Pet Fish, and then we'll have Urha become the focus again. Yes, it does. It does seem quite ridiculous. And I barely know anything of what is about to happen, but I'm kind of curious because it does seem so ridiculous. So I think let us get going. Okay, so again we have some stunning art, as is practice for these beautiful versions. I'm still waiting for a Modu version of this. Like, we need more priest adaptations. Okay, so another thing, obviously I'm very much not Chinese, so the pronunciation might be butchered at the start. I'm gonna try my best. If I need correction, please let me know. So it seems we have Mu Tianqi and a main quest. That is interesting. I'm, I'm not saying that's the other guy's name, I'm just saying there's a main quest. Okay, chapter 1, and let me please not hit the mic on my first day already. This is gonna get some need some getting used to again. I have read it and it's really fun. Okay, cool. I seem to be glitching a little bit. As long as the audio is fine, I'm fine to continue because my visuals aren't that important. But if there is audio issues, please let me know. Okay, chapter 1. The fish in the soup. Oh no! Oh no, that's not good. Liu floated on the surface of the freezing cold water, utterly motionless. He could vaguely hear the muffled noise of people moving about from somewhere above his head, but it was difficult to make out anything clearly. It was a little noisy, though, so he flipped over and opened his eyes. His entire body felt wet. After the initial shock, his mind gradually began to clear. With dawning terror, he realized he was surrounded by water. That's already interesting because that implies that this fish did not used to be a fish. That was impossible. Hadn't he fallen asleep from staying up late reading web novels? When did he fall into water? Hold up, this is a transmigration novel? What? Okay. Okay, let's focus. More importantly, he couldn't even swim. Oh, great. Liu flailed his limbs wildly. As he struggled, he felt something on his back move. In the past, whenever he fell into water, the only fate that awaited him was sinking to the bottom. But to his surprise, this time, he found he didn't plunge straight down. Instead, he was staying afloat, as if an invisible hand were holding him up. And the surreal, impossible to ignore rhythm behind him. What was that? Leo peeked back at himself, unstartled. He had always been proud of his long, slender legs, but now they were gone. In their place, a silvery, glistening fishtail appeared, swishing vigorously through the water from side to side, up and down. Okay, that is something. Are we already starting off on the wrong fin? Oh my goodness, the fish puns are gonna be glorious in this, I feel. I honestly had no idea what I was expecting the explanation for the fish's presence to be. I was just like, I'm sure they'll find some way to explain it. I had faith in the Danmei system. um, oh goodness. Well, that must be why he hadn't sunk. Leo was speechless. What was going on? How did his legs turn into a fishtail? Was he dreaming? Dreaming about turning into a mermaid? mermaid? As girly as it sounded, a mermaid was the only possibility Liu could think of where a human had a fishtail. No, he wasn't thinking about the ugly yet cute dugong from the animal world. It was the ethereal, half-human, half-fish mermaid with long flowing hair, a beautiful complexion, and a heavenly voice. Everyone knew mermaids didn't exist in real life, so the only logical conclusion was that this was all a dream. And since it was a dream, he saw no problem with admiring his own beauty as a mermaid. I kinda love him already, oh my goodness. Liu glanced around, searching for a mirror or anything with a reflection that could show his appearance. As he moved, he kept swishing his tail back and forth vigorously. It was actually kind of nice to have a tail to wave around as he pleased. Unfortunately, the dream wasn't really going exactly as planned. There was no mirror in the water. Liu flipped over and, from force of habit, reached for his forehead to flick his bangs. Except, this led to another problem. Liu quickly realized that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't reach his own forehead. What was going on with his hand? Had his arm become shorter somehow? Liu looked down in confusion. That was when he realized his hands, with their distinct joints, had been replaced with a pair of constantly paddling fish fins that were, well, the exact shape and texture of a fish fin. You don't say. Oh my goodness. Maybe a Little Mermaid adaptation. I mean, that is something to consider. If his legs had turned into a tail and his hands had turned into fins, then Leo hurried to look at himself. Wait. When did his stomach turn flat and slim, like you'd normally only see on a fish? Not only did he have a long, slender belly, but he was also covered in silvery black fish scales. Holy hell. Leo took a deep breath, and a few bubbles actually came floating out. There, reflected on the bubbles' surface, he could see it clearly. His entire body had turned into a fish. Fish head, fish belly, fish scales. He was no mermaid. He was a proper carp. Oh, carp. I'm sorry. That was a terrible joke. Oh my goodness. Okay, I will go down in shame. Fear slammed into Luya so hard he froze, momentarily forgetting to swish his tail. Immediately, he began to sink. Ah, he was going to drown! He was going to drown! Just as he was about to crash into the black rock at the bottom, Luya used both his tail and fins to paddle frantically, managing to stop himself before he collided with the rock. Unfortunately, his tail wasn't so lucky. Luya winced. That truly hurt. Which means you're unfortunately not dreaming. Hello. Um. Oh goodness, I love that you guys aren't judging me too harshly for my terrible joke. Oh goodness. Mm. The fishtail wasn't just some decoration. He'd only hit it once, but Lydia was in so much pain. He spat out a long trail of vigorously sized bubbles. What is up with that? That hurt more than cutting into his leg with a knife. Ooh, ow. How could the pain be so real in a dream? Lydia's eyes widened slightly. No way. Was this not actually a dream? He'd really turned into a fish? And not just any fish, but the most basic kind of carp? Where exactly was he? How did he transform? There was no way he was turned into a carp just because his name was Liu, right? Oh my goodness. Really? Like, because I know Yu means fish, but I didn't think it was that kind of Yu, you know? And, most importantly, was there a way for him to change back? An entire herd of WTFs stampeded through Liu's mind. Before he had the chance to fully grasp the situation at hand, he heard someone speak. A high, reedy voice rang out. Shaolin Zi, we're still missing a live fish for the noble consul's 1,000 carp soup. No! Not Liu Ye! No, this is not good. Another voice immediately responded. Gao Gong Gong, this fish flipped over just now. Oh no! The birthday banquet is an important matter, and this servant doesn't dare present it to the noble consort, so I was about to throw it away. Should I go get another? Liu was alarmed. He had been secretly celebrating the discovery that there was other people around him, but what was it with all the noble consort and Gong Gong stuff? Did he transmigrate into historical palace fish? Mm-hmm, you might have actually. Danger on the first page indeed. And what the hell was the 1,000 carp soup? Before he could figure it out, a light shone right into the water above Liu's head, splitting the dark in two. From that beam of light, a terrifyingly sized hand reached in. Liu almost passed out on the spot. This hand was way too big. But after some careful consideration, he realized, of course it was. He was an ordinary little fish now. Obviously, a human hand would be colossal to a fish. Every instinct inside Liu screamed that he was in danger. He couldn't help swimming all over the place. Without a moment's hesitation, the hand reached into the water, fingers outstretched, and clasped around Liu, who was bubbling about like a headless fly. At least he didn't say a headless fish, I guess. Now that he was a fish, Yuya had no neck, so the hand covered most of his body. Yuya yelped and struggled fiercely, his tail flapping violently. It was even more painful than hitting his tail just now. How could you grab a fish's chest and stomach? It hurts. I mean, they're planning on eating you. I don't think they very much care about your pain tolerance right now, unfortunately. But the person couldn't hear the fish's cries and just chuckled. This fish is certainly lively. What do you mean it flipped over? Xiaolinze, you didn't say that just so you could take the fish for yourself, did you? With all the ruckus around him, Lia's world was spinning, but he managed to catch a phrase of the place he'd been in before, a fish basket. Ensnared in the person's hand, he was lifted to meet their gaze. Lia's fish eyes took in two people dressed like palace servants from ancient times. The one holding him was Gao Gong. He wasn't very tall, and he looked like a round white dough ball. Oh my goodness, what a description. Next to him, Shalinze looked a little like a flax stem. Shalinze hurried to kiss up to Gao Gong. He smiled and said, Gao Gong, this servant would never dare take advantage with you overseeing everything. My eyes must have been playing tricks on me before. It's simply a misunderstanding. Since the fish is still alive, the servant will go and prepare the fish soup immediately. Liu, who was being held by Gao Gong, immediately became agitated. What? What? Fish soup? Thousand carp soup. Might have been a complete mystery to him just a moment ago, but the concept of fish soup was definitely something he understood deep within his bones. He was a fish right now, and they were about to turn him into a soup. He is so astute. Oh my goodness. Let me just quickly see if I can zoom in a little bit here just to make things easier for myself. Okay. Chef, les poissons. I love les poissons. Yeah, no. I immediately thought of the Little Mermaid. Squeezing me is one thing, but turning me into a soup is where I draw the line. Originally, Gao Gong had only visited the imperial kitchen to scold Xiaolinze a little. Now that was done, he was planning on leaving the fish for Xiaolinze to deal with. The year had lain quietly and still in Gao Gong's grip for some time, but now that the soup was on the menu, he mustered all his strength to struggle free. Where are you gonna go if you're free, though? The fish was slippery. In the split second that Gao Gong loosened his grip, Li Ye managed to get free and fling himself into the air and promptly land on the ground. That's probably not what's gonna happen. I just don't know how this is gonna work. But no human heard the fish and... Oh, sorry. I skipped a page. Li Ye still thrashed around as he flew through the air, leaving a long trail of water behind him. Oh, I misread. Liu, still thrashing around as he flew through the air, leaving a long trail of water behind him, was terrified. What was he going to do? Was he going to die? He was going to die. Was he still going to be made into soup if he died? Sob. He still hadn't figured out how exactly he'd transmigrated into a fish in the first place. He didn't want to die. What if stuck? What if it stuck this time? Liu soared through Shaolinze, soared towards Shaolinze, completely out of control. Shaolinze reached out to grab him, but the fish was too slippery, and he couldn't get a firm hold of him. Liu was seconds away from splattering onto the floor when a long meow came from outside, and a streak of snowy white fur bound in. This poor fish is going through so much trauma in so few seconds. Just before Liu's tail hit the ground, the white figure caught him firmly in its mouth. He didn't even have time to celebrate his close call before his scales were standing straight up all over his body. Holy crap! This shape, this sound. Was this a large white cat? He had managed to escape from the hold of a human only to land directly in the mouth of a cat? How was he supposed to survive a cat's mouth? That's what I'm wondering. Oh my goodness. Lee had never been afraid of cats before, but now that he was a fish, he was scared to death. Cats' tongues were covered in spikes. If it licked him, would it take a chunk of him with it? He was completely paralyzed by fear. The cat was going to eat him. He'd be just a pile of fish bones. Being turned into soup wasn't sounding so bad anymore. This poor fish. The large white cat that had appeared out of nowhere ignored Gao Gong Gong and Xiaolinzi and sprinted out with the fish in its mouth. It all happened way too fast. It took Xiaolinzi a moment to react. Gao Gong Gong, the cat has taken the fish. You don't want it now that it's been in the cat's mouth, though. The sturdy, fat white cat looked a little familiar. With a start, Gao Gong Gong realized who it was and kicked Xiaolinzi. What are you dawdling for? Can't you see that's the noble consort's cat? Xiaolinzi, hurry and follow it. Don't let the precious master cat choke on a fish bone. Otherwise, the noble consort will never forgive us. After all, the cat of our master is also half a master. Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, not the best news because it's very much focused on saving the cat and not the fish, but hopefully it will save the fish while saving the cat as well. What can you do as a fish? To be an MC means to get trauma, that's true, for character development. The sacrifices we make. Yes, sir. There was a tinge of bitterness in Shalinza's voice. You couldn't afford to offend even a cat's master these days. The ear was clamped between the white cat's jaws, and Shaolinzi chased after him. Originally, he had hoped Gao Gong Gong and Shaolinzi would pull him out of the cat's mouth, since he was, after all, an ingredient for the fish soup that made him more or less useful. But hearing what they were saying now, it turned out that they didn't care about the fish at all and had no plans to save him. They were more concerned the cat might choke on his bones. How fickle. These guys sure knew how to wait and see which way the wind blew. Oh my goodness, why is this so funny? As infuriated as Liu was, there was nothing he could do about his situation. All he could do was use every ounce of energy he had left to try and slip out of the cat's mouth. But the white cat was not the ambitious yet incompetent Gao Gong Gong, nor did it have the habit of eating and running at the same time. It held Liu delicately in its sharp teeth. Liu wiggled around, but its jaws didn't even loosen. On the contrary, they tightened around him. Yeah, and also you might cut yourself, so just don't move for now. The comedy of this is perfection indeed. Liu didn't dare move anymore. He lay quietly in the cat's mouth, the tip of his tail quivering uncontrollably. Though this was way too scary, Liu couldn't help screaming, "Help! Someone save me!" It didn't matter whoever it was, he'd do anything they wanted in his next life as long as they freed him from the cat's mouth. You know, normally I would totally agree with you, but this is a Danmei novel, so that might not be the best promise to make to yourself. You never know who you'll be trampled on. But no human heard the fish, and neither did the cat. The large white cat trotted on, unencumbered. Countless people saw it pass, but not a single one of them stopped it. It was exactly like Gao Gong Gong had said. The cat of our master is also a half-master. While Li Yi's screams were going unheard, the white cat dug its claws into the floor tiles, skidding to an abrupt stop. Leo flinched as he felt the cat's teeth tighten around him. The white cat's shiny eyes glared at whatever was in front of it, a warning growl rumbling from its throat, as if it were facing a formidable enemy. Detecting the shift in the white cat's attitude, Leo quickly looked to see why. A young man with a tall, upright figure, draped in resplendent, luxurious robes, appeared in his field of vision. Like a god descending upon the earth, he blocked the great white cat's path. The image is stunning. I'm just slightly concerned that he's not going to be the savior that Lee is probably going to hope him to be. But let me just share the image with you guys because it is quite glorious. Like, it's so stunning, and then you have the cat's reaction that is just so funny at the same time, which I feel encapsulates this book, or at least the bit that I've read so far. Okay, let me just quickly drink some tea before we keep going. I wanted to mention as well, I'm not sure how my voice is going to be faring during this first live stream because it has been so long since I did a live stream. So I'm going to see how I feel after the first hour, and we'll kind of take it from there if that's okay. Generally, these are supposed to be 2 hour long read-alongs though. Okay, chapter 2. The Fish in the Cat's Mouth. Leo was delighted. So there was someone who didn't kiss up to Master Cat. If a cat's intellect could be compared to that of a 2-year-old, then this large white cat was a spoiled child. No one had ever denied it anything. It had always gotten anything and everything it wanted. How dare this person presume to stand in the cat's way when it had a fish in its mouth? The white cat spun on the spot a couple of times, deciding it would demonstrate just who the real master was here. With the fish held firmly in its jaws, it pounced on the young man's shins. Thwack! Oh goodness, did he just hit the cat? I have like split feelings about that, because on the one hand, I like cats. On the other hand, please rescue the fish. The white cat pounced so hard that, even trapped inside its mouth, Leo could feel its muscles tense up. But its target didn't even flinch. Yowling, the cat bounced off the young man's firm legs. Leo felt its jaws loosening around him with a rush of elation and rolled out of its mouth and onto the floor. Luckily, Master Cat wasn't very far from the ground, so the impact wasn't too harsh. The white cat froze, letting out a meow. It readied itself for recapturing its prey. Leo had just only managed to escape the cat's mouth. How could he let it snatch him up again? Desperate, he flapped his tail wildly and leapt into the air, only to leap so far that his tail slapped the cat right in the mouth with a resounding smack. Oh, goodness. Leo was speechless. So was the white cat. No way. All he wanted was to escape. How did he manage to accidentally slap the cat instead? If fish could swear, Leo would have been sweating. If fish could sweat, Leo would have been sweating bullets. As a fish that dared to slap a cat in the face, wasn't he asking to be eaten immediately? Oh goodness. With its fur standing on end from the sun slap, the white cat raised one heavy paw and pressed it down on Leo's body. To the little fish, the cat's sharp claws might as well have been made of steel. Leo continued to struggle. "Ow, don't press on my head, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts." As a fish that dared to make a scene in front of a cat, it was a wonder he hadn't been swallowed already. Was his illustrious life really about to come to an end in a cat's mouth? Under the cat's paw, Leo's body hurt all over. He went limp from the pain, but unwilling to accept his fate. The tip of his tail still trembled. It was when he saw a pair of pitch-black, cloud-patterned boots slowly approaching. When the white cat caught him the second time, the youth in luxurious robes noticed the commotion too. Leo wasn't sure if he was imagining things now that his death was imminent, but he thought the young man had glanced over in his direction, just briefly. But how was that possible? Neither Gao Gonggong nor Shalinze deigned to spare him an extra glance. Just the briefest look at his opulent robes was enough for Liu to see that this youth was someone of status. Was it really possible someone like that would notice a little fish like him? Liu's reserves of energy were almost depleted, and he could hardly lift his tail any more. He lay there quietly, channeling the last of his strength into just taking breath after difficult breath. Fish couldn't stay out of water for too long, nor could they bear being bitten or clawed at by a cat. Poor Liu had managed to check both boxes. I would say all three boxes, to be quite fair. We are reading a cartoon right now. That is an accurate description of the experience, I feel. And it's really enjoyable. With the swish of his robes, the youth crouched down. Liu watched his handsome face grow larger and larger as it drew closer and closer. His face was handsome to the extreme, but as cold and beautiful as icy frost. The hair at his temples was so neatly arranged that it could have been cut by a knife, and he had eyes like cold stars, skin as pale as jade, red lips, and snowy white teeth. If Song Yu or Pan An were still alive, he probably could have given them a run for their money. Liu's vocabulary was quite limited when it came to compliments, so his brain very quickly ran out of words. Back when he was still human, he'd been very confident in his own appearance and thought he was rather good looking. Did the heavens know he was close to death and deliberately arranged for him to meet the most beautiful, ethereal man just so he could die with jealousy in his heart? I mean, that's one way of looking at it, I suppose. Whether you were a fish or a person, being close to death really brought out your honesty. Okay, fine. It was true, he was a little jealous. Experiencing the phenomenon known as terminal lucidity, Liu's brain started to spiral into nonsense. Next to his ear, the large white cat meowed extremely unhappily, and all of a sudden, the pressure on his body disappeared, and the sharp claws that had held him down so tightly were gone. Leo couldn't believe his luck. He tried to move his fish body. The pain was still intense, but he really could move. What happened? Why would the white cat let him go for no reason? Leo looked up slightly and saw the cat raised up in the air. The youth in the opulent robes had picked it up roughly by the scruff of its neck. Although this was a rather burly cat, it was obviously an expensive breed, with its pure snow-white fur and eyes like clear blue sapphires. Most people would at least pity this soft white fluffball and treat it tenderly, even if they didn't care for the noble consort. But this youth's expression was indifferent, with absolutely no regard for the cat at all. Leah didn't understand what was happening, but what was most important here was that there was a sliver of hope for his life as a fish. Thank the heavens, and thank this beautiful man. Suddenly not so jealous anymore, are we? Having been dragged away from both the fish and the floor by force, the cat let out a furious, shrill yowl, its claws slashing wildly in the air. Perhaps this would have been enough to intimidate anyone else, but the tall young man was unimpressed. Shaolinzi, who had belatedly rushed to the scene, immediately fell to his knees upon witnessing all this. Liu couldn't help feeling shocked through his haze of pain. What was Shaolinzi doing? There was no way he was kneeling because he wanted to save an ingredient, right? No, unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. Reality soon proved him wrong. Shaolinzi was kneeling before the finely dressed youth. Kowtowing, he stumbled over his words. Prince Jing, this is the noble consort's precious master cat. Please have mercy. Liu was stunned. This youth was a prince? Prince Jing? Hearing a noble consort or gong gong had been one thing, but why did Prince Jing sound so familiar? But the thought only crossed his mind for a second. Liu had more important things to worry about. His fish life was still in danger. So you're telling me, Liu, that you were potentially, I mean, this should have been obvious earlier on, but potentially reading a web novel about a fish and a prince? Is that what we're hearing here? Or are you about to seriously derail what was once a beloved and very average web novel? Okay. Hmm. The extravagantly dressed youth, Prince Jing, scoffed. His dark eyes swept across Shalinze, but he made no moves to release the cat. The white cat had been yowling vigorously, but it seemed to have exhausted itself, its cries getting quieter and quieter. Prince Jing exuded a commanding air, ignoring it. Shalinze remained kneeling on the ground, more and more sweat collecting on his forehead. Liu was still lying on the ground. He was extremely grateful that Prince Jing saved him from the large feline bully, but could someone pay attention to him and put him back in the water? He was about to turn into a dead fish. What to do? Liu, wearing Liu wearily curled his tail, but no one could hear his thoughts. Your Highness, wait for this old servant. I'm coming. Another unfamiliar figure came rushing from the distance, hollering and yelling. It was an older eunuch. He came to a stop in between Prince Jing and Shalinze, then took a huge gulp of air. This was Prince Jing's personal servant, Wang Shi. Wang Shi Gong, you're here. Shalinze's eyes brightened, thinking his savior had arrived. He hurried to bow and said, Please, please help me ask Prince Jing for forgiveness. Forgiveness? Wang Shi had finally caught his breath. He glanced carefully at Prince Jing's expression before shooting a fierce glare at Shaolinze. This cat was the one that jumped at His Highness. Are you saying His Highness can't punish it? Shaolinze felt the world spin. He whimpered, That's the noble consort's prized master cat. Oh goodness, I feel for him because at the end of the day he's just a worker trying to do his job. Wang Shi had already recognized the white cat, but as soon as Shaolinze brought it up, his rage shot through the roof. It's just a cat. How dare it try and act like a master in front of His Highness? He spat. It's not like it's doing it deliberately. Calm down. Wang Gong Gong. Shaolinze had a sinking feeling he had just misspoken and hurriedly slapped a hand over his mouth. While the noble consort's cat was essentially half a master compared to servants like him, it was nothing in front of the descendants of the dragon. The descendants of the dragon? That's interesting. My goodness, they're so petty about cats, right? And meanwhile, our main lead is like dying off in the corner. Mm. Indignant and indignant with fury, Wang Xi spat on Shaolinze and cursed him out. Shaolinze trembled all over, head lowered, and was even more afraid to speak than before. After he was done with his tirade, Wang Shi turned back and to look at Prince Jing. The prince's icy eyes moved slightly, and Wang Shi immediately understood. Holding his hands up daintily, he turned round and loudly yelled, This cat has offended His Highness. His Highness is disciplining it a little. Oh my goodness, calm down. Why are you getting so worked up? Why are you getting so worked up? Since the cat in Prince Jing's hand had failed in its attempts to intimidate him, its temper had more or less subsided. It seemed to realize it had hit a brick wall and settled on sticking out its pink tongue and mewling pitifully. Most people's hearts would have softened at this point, but Prince Jing was not most people. He waited until the white cat stopped meowing and demurely lowered its head and then casually tossed it at Shaolin's. Damn! Well, at least it didn't like actually get hurt. I don't know. It didn't fear heights. It soared from Prince Jing's hands and eagerly threw itself straight into Shaolin's arms. Shaolin's barely had any meat on his bones, and he nearly coughed up blood when the cat collided with his chest. My goodness. Wang Shi coughed lightly. His Highness is evidently in a good mood today, as he only reprimanded it a little. You'd better keep an eye on it, though, should there be a next time. I've lived to see this age, and I have never seen anyone dare to anger His Highness twice. It's a cat. Calm down. But also the fact that he's apparently this cold towards a cat, I can't help but wonder how we're gonna get him to save our main lead. Yeah, no, say, I cats and dogs both. Don't talk to me about hurting them. I just can't. The servant understands. Charlie's kowtowed several times in a row. Prince Jing waved a hand carelessly. Wang Shi spat at Charlie's again and followed behind the prince. Wait, they were going to leave? Just like that? Liu had waited so eagerly for so long, but this Prince Jing, who'd saved him and even spared him an extra glance, didn't seem to have any intention of helping him further. Escaping from the jaws of the cats had already taken everything Liu had. Since no one could understand him, all he could do was muster up the last of his strength to curl his tail. His fish tail stuck to the floor lightly. Struck the floor lightly. Once, twice. His plea for help was so weak and pitiful, it was practically inaudible. It was enough to make anyone lose hope. But each time Liu wanted to give up, he pushed himself to keep going. Perhaps if he persevered, there would be a miracle. There wasn't. He kept swishing his tail until he couldn't lift it anymore. The boots that had once saved him didn't stop for him again. Liu gradually lost consciousness, his tail falling still. The air settled around him. Prince Jing was already several meters away when he suddenly paused and turned around. A hint of confusion flashed across his cold eyes. Your Highness, what's wrong? Wang Shi also looked around, perplexed. Shaolin's had already run off with the white cat. There was no one else here. Brow furrowed, Prince Jing made a shushing motion and walked back. Can he read minds? That I feel like that's the only explanation for how he could bond with a fish. And potentially also be so aware of this fish's presence without really being able to indicate it or understand it. Mm. The prince's attention was focused on the ground below his feet. He seemed to be looking for something. He soon arrived back at the spot where he had stopped before. Suddenly, he paused and crouched down. Your Highness, please don't trouble yourself. What do you need? Let the servant do it instead. Wang Shi clamoured to stop Prince Jing, but the prince took no notice. He stubbornly pulled Wang Shi aside and picked something up from the ground with his own hands. A palm-sized fish, to be exact. A fish that had been clamped between the jaws of the cat and was now covered with wounds. Your Highness, this... Wang Shi trailed off uncertainly. Isn't this a very ordinary carp? Why did your Highness come back for this fish? This was the first time he'd ever been unsure he could understand His Highness. Prince Jing hesitated for a moment. He reached out and touched the limp fish tail with his finger. The tail flopped against the floor weakly. Prince Jing's expression darkened, but the way he held the fish was exceedingly gentle. Your Highness, please let me. Wang Shi spread his arms. Prince Jing shook his head, holding the fish himself, and headed straight for the nearest garden. A dazed and uncomfortable Liu felt a long-awaited warmth. He could have sworn it was blankets and a pillow. Sob sob. Life as a fish was much too hard. But if he was going to die and turn back into a human, perhaps all the suffering would be worth it. Leo was already celebrating on the inside when he heard the sound of the system. Congratulations, user. The first part of More Pet System. That is not what it's called. Oh my goodness. Main quest. Tyrant's priceless pet fish. First meeting with the Tyrant has been completed. No, we're actually getting that. I don't know why, but like, I was not expecting a system in this. Oh my word. I kind of would have been interested to see how this goes without a system, but we're not going to find out. Hi, Google Translate system. Oh, goodness. This is going to be a mess. So, has everyone already finished the novel as a whole, or just finished the first volume? Because I don't know when the third volume is coming out. I know the second one is already out. Okay. Chapter 3. Priceless Pet Fish. For a moment, Liu thought he was imagining things, but some time had passed, and it didn't seem like he was turning back into a human. Not only did he not change, but some random system had popped up. It seemed to be called More Pet System? No sooner had he thought that, 2 rows of large golden words appeared before his eyes. The system that had spoken up moments ago chimed in again, without his prompting. User, please select main quest or side quest. The ear blinked. It seemed he had accidentally entered a system. The system called him user, so this was his personal golden finger, a cheat code for his transmigration. At least that meant his transformation into a fish hadn't been for nothing. Although he was still a fish and hadn't transformed back into a human, as long as he had this golden finger, perhaps he could find a way to get back to normal if he followed the system's instructions. I mean, I feel like of all the people to desperately follow a system, this makes the most sense. Like, of course you would want to desperately follow the system to get your human form back. I've read the first 2 volumes. I've actually never read it. I've seen Kikta's video about it. Oh, I staunchly avoided that so I wouldn't be spoiled. I've read 1.5 through 2. Oh, okay, cool. The previous prompt had said he had completed the first step of the main quest. Out of habit, Leo tried to tap the word main quest as he would on a touchscreen, but what was a routine action for a human was quite a challenge for a fish. His fins were too short to reach. He flapped his fins rather desperately, thinking if only he could tap it. When suddenly the main quest flashed of its own accord, expanding into several lines of text. Got it. I don't need to touch anything with the system. I can control it using my thoughts. Thank freaking goodness. Could you imagine the struggle? All the text under the main quest was dark, except for the very top line, which was lit up. Each line properly corresponded to a different main quest. With a desperate desire to turn back into a human thrumming through his veins, New Year skimmed through each main quest. They were all about fish. There was nothing about humans. Other than Tyrant's priceless pet fish, which he had seen already there, was also Tyrant's pet fish for revitalizing the family. Sounds like he's still gonna be eaten. Postpartum care for fish. It got more and more ridiculous as he read on. The only one he could access was the topmost one, which glowed Tyrant's priceless pet fish. Leah had no other choice but to tap on it, albeit reluctantly. The progress bar was this, and description for Tyrant's priceless pet fish immediately popped up. First, he looked through the description. It was super simple. All he needed to do was become the Tyrant's beloved pet fish. Although it was a little clickbaity, it at least matched the name of the system. More pet system. Mm-hmm. Wait, wasn't he forgetting something? This Tyrant kept coming up, but he still had no idea who that was supposed to be. Come on, you've read enough web novels probably to put two and two together. Who just saved your life, hey? The system seemed to sense his confusion, and a transparent window popped up, surrounded by swirling rose petals. The window displayed Prince Jing's frustratingly handsome face. The tyrant was Prince Jing. Mm-hmm. Mia cracked a smile. So he'd completed first meeting with the tyrant when he'd encountered Prince Jing? Sure, this Prince Jing looked pretty cold and didn't speak much, but why did the system have to call him a tyrant? The system had no response this time. Prince Jing's handsome face remained unchanged in the pop-up. Did this mean he had to continue tapping? After some pondering, he poked Prince Jing's face with his tail. The system popped up with another prompt. The fluttering rose petals automatically reconfigured into a blurb about Prince Jing. He was the fifth son of the Emperor of Great Chu, Mu Tianqi, and was born with a speech impediment. He couldn't talk. Okay, sorry, I was trying to remember if we'd heard him talk at all, because for a moment I was unsure if it meant he was just struggled to talk or if he doesn't speak at all. Prince Jing was Mu Tianqi. Liu felt that he'd been struck by lightning. No wonder Prince Jing's name seemed so familiar. No wonder Prince Jing was way too quiet compared to Wang Shi or Shaolin Ji. Sorry, Shaolin Zi. Liu had been so preoccupied with running for his life that he didn't realize at the time, but now he fully knew which book he'd fallen into. He knew the name Mo Tian Chi very well indeed. He was the male lead from the web novel Li had stayed up all night reading when he was bored, the tyrant and his delicate concubine. Okay, interesting. Mo Tianqi was a cold, ruthless tyrant who wouldn't hesitate to slaughter someone's entire family if he was displeased. Damn! But because he was mute, he still inspired a little pity. Liu had transmigrated into a novel with the system. Never mind that this was a book about a tyrant. Why did he transmigrate into a fish? Let's not worry about the tyrant for now. Why did he get paired up with the Moor pet system? And why were all his quests about fish? Very interesting, because it doesn't seem like his quests is falling into what he knows of the novel that he read. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how he's going to derail this novel. Nope, he has no verbal dialogue. Okay, that's going to be interesting. The system cuts in with a voice message, speaking slowly. You've already transmigrated, so you might as well accept your fate. The purpose of your existence is to help improve the tyrannical male lead's personality. Apparently, having a pet can help cultivate one's tender side. No, oh my goodness, why is that so funny? They did not just. Oh goodness. Oh my word. I am still intrigued to find out how he had his attention drawn to Lee again. Obviously, no spoilers, but that is a little bit odd for me. I feel like there's an explanation for why he noticed and went back for Lee. It could also just be a plot contrivance in the system sense, but we'll see. I've read the whole thing and it's so silly. I mean, I can't imagine someone writing this kind of book and not doing it fully self aware. That'd be a damn shame. Lee was dumbfounded. He knew the system had ulterior motives. He didn't want to do these weird tasks at all. Was the system going to force him to do them even if he didn't want to? The system answered immediately. The more petfish system will the more pet system will not force its user, but if the user does not complete the quests, then you will never turn back into a human. Okay, so the stakes are immediately evidence, and he immediately has a reason to be following the rules. I get that. I like it when the rules are very clear and there's a reason why the person has to follow it. Um, what? I can't go back even if I die? You can't. The system voice held a note of finality. Failing to regain human form means retaining the lifespan of the fish. In the end, a fish will turn into fish bones and fish ash. Comforting. What if I choose not to do these quests at all? Asked Liye. You will turn into fish bones and fish ash. Immediately. Great! Liye wanted to curse. Wasn't this the definition of forcing him? The system piped up again to emphasize, the more pet system will not force its user. Sorry, I'm just thinking about a real life equivalent that I had where it's like, you're saying that, but I don't think you know what that means. Can you please not repeat yourself? He didn't want to turn into fish bones or fish ash, but he had no interest in turning the Tyrant's personality around either. All he wanted to know was how he could become human again. The system spoke. Once the main quest has progressed to a certain point, one of the steps will involve becoming human again. That's more like it. Okay, it's just a main quest. Fine, I'll do it. He was acting nonchalant, but Lee was hyper aware that he could not risk playing around with his own life. The More Pet system had one thing right. He had already transmigrated. He had already seen for himself that the system was his golden finger and could appear in his consciousness, so he had to believe it. Now that he'd resolved to do this quest, Lee started to calm down. He took a good look at his current quest, priceless pet fish. There were a number of steps to this quest. The first step, first meeting with the Tyrant, was already completed. The second step, interact with the Tyrant, was glowing. There was nothing else beyond that. It looked like he'd have to complete step 2 before he unlocked any more instructions for the next step. What a stingy system. It couldn't even be bothered to give him more detailed prompts. Interact with the Tyrant? Interact how? Leo was a little frustrated. What connection did the two of them even have? Prince Jing was a prince. Leo was merely a fish from the imperial kitchen. Did he have to turn himself into fish soup or braised fish so that Prince Jing could eat him? The system chimed in, use your brain, think harder. What the hell, system? Why did it feel like it was taunting him? Leo couldn't figure anything out from the main quest. Then an idea came to mind. He went to check on the side quests. Side quests were optional, and anyone who'd ever played a game knew the side quests usually weren't too hard and could come with generous rewards. The main quest was way too weird, but maybe Leo could pull some clues from the side quests. His investigation proved to be fruitless, however, when he found side quests were all grayed out, meaning it wasn't time for them yet. For example, one of the side quests was turn into a koi. Ah, things are making sense now. Um, that one looked quite nice. If he had to be a fish for the time being, a koi fish would at least be better than the kind of carp that was a regular feature on the menu, right? Even an idiot knew koi fish were lucky. Why wasn't this task available? Probably because it would make your life too easy. Okay, so we are at the top of page 34, so I'm gonna quickly take my 10-minute break. I just wanna see here. There is kind of an explanation why he noticed the fish. Okay, that's good. As long as there is, I don't want spoilers on what that is, but um, oh my goodness, I'm randomly craving fish sticks and I'm ashamed of myself. You cannot eat fish sticks while we're reading about a main character fish. That just seems unusually cruel. Um, okay, I will be right back at 12 past. Okay, we are back. Hopefully everything is fine in terms of audio and so on. Okay, so I think we're more or less back, and I think the audio should be fine. Uh, Ironically, my parents are watching MasterChef, and they happen to be cooking with fish tonight. So I am very sorry to this book. I feel I feel like I did something wrong, even though I know I didn't. Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. I have new tea with me, and I think we can basically just get started immediately. Um, okay. Side quests have prerequisites, the system informed him. You can only accept the quest once the prerequisites have been met. What prerequisites does the koi quest have? The system replied, complete the main quest. Priceless pet fish. How? I can't skip being a pet fish? That's right. Fish have been cursed today, indeed. Liu was clearly a man, but now he had to be another man's pet fish. And not just any man, a man with a bad temper who couldn't talk. Wasn't this way too hard? Did completing the quest even come with rewards? If the rewards weren't all that great, what was even the point? I'm just realizing, like, I know there was the kind of jesty comments about the Little Mermaid earlier, but it's the fact that one of the two main characters is technically mute for presumably either the majority or the entirety of the novel. It does kind of read a little bit like a strange retelling of The Little Mermaid, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, um, I got sidetracked there. Did completing the quest even come with rewards? If the rewards weren't all that great, what was even the point? Leo asked, what kind of rewards do I get for completing Priceless Pet Fish? There will be rewards, right? Yes, the system said. You've already completed the first step, so the strength of your fishtail has increased. Please use it carefully. The reward for completing the second step is an inventory that you can take around with you. The rest of the rewards will be revealed as you continue to unlock new tasks. Okay, there we go. Leo's eyes lit up. He didn't know how useful a stronger tail would be, but an inventory would be great. He could put stuff in it. Being a fish was so inconvenient. He needed to get over his embarrassment fast so he could complete these tasks. Oh my goodness. While he was wrapped up in his thoughts, the system alerted him about. What? While he was wrapped in his thoughts, the system alerted him he was about to exit. He woke up. As he opened his fish eyes, he came to the realization that he was lying in a blue and white porcelain tank filled with water. So his conversation with the system had all happened inside his own head. There was no way to tell what had been going on from the outside. Back in reality, he had passed out from everything he'd gone through at the claws of the white cat and from being out of the water for too long. He'd already been unconscious for 2 hours. Pain crashed down on his body in waves. He had yet to fully recover from his cat-induced injuries. A little dazed, Leo looked around at his surroundings. Before he'd lost consciousness, he remembered thumping his tail on the ground until it nearly broke, yet no one had come to his rescue. Shouldn't he still be lying on the floor tiles right now? How did this change of scenery happen? Sir, you are so clueless. I'm now waiting for Sebastian to be in his tank, to be his tank mate and start singing Kiss the Boy. Oh my goodness, that would have been glorious. It didn't matter. He was injured, and he needed to rest, recover, and figure out where he was. He also had to find Prince Jing as soon as possible so he could complete this task. With that figured out, Liu set about carefully examining the world inside the tank. This blue and white porcelain tank was a massive upgrade from the dark fish basket he found himself in when he first transmigrated. It didn't have the oily, smoky smell of the Imperial kitchen, and was bright and well ventilated, although the top of the tank was a bit on the tall side. When he looked up, he could only see a portion of the ceiling. Although the opening was small, you could see he was in a room with carved beams and painted rafters. This was clearly a place of wealth. So obviously, I can't expect the more historical setting to have a traditional glass tank, but I do wonder how that is gonna limit the way that they can interact. That's quite an interesting thought. Okay. Hmm. The water in the tank was very clear. Aside from a few aquatic plants swaying gently in the ripples, he was the tank's only occupant. Snow-white stones lay beneath him. Leo observed the stones for a while. Each one was round, with any harsh edges smoothed away. When he lay on them, it felt rather comfortable. It made for a good place to heal from his injuries. Leo wanted to rip off a piece of the plant, but after several minutes of struggling, he knew he could forget about using his fins as hands to tear it off. He could barely even use them to grab hold of the plant. No matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't get it to work. Maybe try your mouth instead. I don't know if that would work, but it might bode more results. He remembered what the system had said. It had boosted his tail's power. Perhaps he could try that. He swished his tail at the plant, not hoping for much. Ow, ow, ow. That simple action tore at his injury. Leo grimaced in pain, regretting his impulsiveness slightly. His tail didn't seem to have made any difference. But just as Leo was thinking that, the system had a habit of lying to a fish. A glossy green leaf drifted down gently and landed on top of his head. Leo glanced at his tail excitedly. He pulled the leaf down with his mouth and used it to cover up most of his body. Then he lay back down on his bed of white rocks. I have to say, like, that would make quite a cute image if you are the outside observer. Mm. After all, the best way to heal from an injury was by lying down with a blanket. He'd rest some and recover his energy. Once he felt a little better, he'd look for Prince Jing. He slept for a while before he was woken by a soft, creaking sound. It was the sound of a door opening, he realized. Someone had entered the room he was in. It must be the person who'd saved him and put him in this tank. The tank contained water, plants, and even smooth stones. There was no way it wasn't supposed to be a fish tank. If someone had gone to the trouble of arranging all this, it must mean they want to keep him, not eat him. Who could this person be? The footsteps came closer, unhurried. With an unexpected feeling of anticipation, Leo raised his head a little and waited. Before long, a matchlessly handsome face appeared above the tank. Oh my goodness. Wasn't that the target of his quests? Prince Jing? Mu Tianqi? Did that mean Prince Jing was the one who saved him? Leo was both surprised and delighted. This was too easy. Never say that. Never say that. Do you want to jinx it? To be honest, he still rejected the thought of being someone's pet fish, but now that he knew his savior was the target of his quest, he could suck it up. So, what exactly should a good pet fish do? Please his owner and make him happy, of course. Leo tossed his leaf-covered head about and eagerly blew a little bubble towards Prince Jing. I'm such a cute fish. Please don't cut off my head. That is not a sentence I ever thought I would say in my life. Okay. Okay. Let me quickly open back up. Oh, I forgot to mention where we were at. I'll remember to mention it again when we start Friday's live stream, because I feel like usually when I come back I mention which page we're on, but I forgot this time. Okay, chapter 4. Fish flavored shredded pork. That sounds horrifying. Liu Ye was keen to win Prince Jing over, and for good reason. Having read the original book, Liu Ye knew that, despite Mu Tianqi's tyrannical character archetype, he didn't start off as an oppressive dictator who killed people without batting an eye. When Mu Tianqi was still just Prince Jing, he was at most a little cold and indifferent. His muteness meant he had long since lost the right to the throne, but in the end it was he, the most unlikely heir, who had climbed step by step up to the throne. With a cold, ruthless decisiveness, he had bathed both his court and back palace with blood, completing his transformation from silent, cold prince to a cruel tyrant whom the world feared. This change didn't happen overnight. Wu Tianqi underwent a huge emotional journey before he reached his full tyrannical potential, but it would be impossible to explain the trials and tribulations he experienced in just a few sentences. In any case, since Mu Tianqi was still a prince right now, that meant his personality hadn't changed yet. In other words, this tyrant hadn't reached the point where he'd chop off someone's head as soon as they looked at him. That much was clear just from the fact that Mu Tianqi had not called for the white cat's execution when he first caught it. That's quite intense. I don't think I could support him if I saw him execute a cat. Prince Jing may have punished the white cat for running into him, giving off a cold and heartless impression all the while, but he did let the cat go afterwards. Not a single drop of cat blood was spilled. If this had happened after his ascension to the throne, that cat wouldn't have stood a chance. But right now, Prince Jing's mindset was simple. An eye for an eye, not an eye for your whole family. Plus, Prince Jing had saved a fish like Liu Ye. Wasn't that an example in and of itself? So it wasn't hard to understand why the system wanted him to complete these tasks and improve the tyrant's personality. Better to start now, while Mu Tianqi was still Prince Jing and had yet to evolve into a true tyrant. Liu Ye deliberately adopted a humbler demeanor for the purpose of this task. If he was going to be Prince Jing's pet fish, he had to try to get into his owner's good graces. As a fish, how do you do that? Because, I feel as if there's a potentially inherent cute quality to a cat or a dog if you're a cat or a dog person. But, and I happen to be both, so I think we both are equally cute. But, a fish, do fish parents feel the same way? Like, as long as you're a fish parent, do you think they're adorable? Because I've never had a pet fish, so I don't know. The questions of the ages here. Um, but it was a tall order to ask Prince Jing to recognize devotion just from the mere movements of a fish. Mia blew bubbles until his mouth was sore. Prince Jing's eyes flickered over, but his gaze remained impassive, like an ice-capped mountain that was impossible to melt. Mia very quickly exhausted himself. After everything he did to try and get into the prince's good graces, he couldn't even get him to crack the ghost of a smile. Wang Shi Gong Gong, however, snorted and chuckled. Look, Your Highness, the fish you saved has come back to life. It's even sneezing. Wang Qi grinned widely from behind Prince Jing, cheerily watching the little carpet blow bubbles. How intriguing. Wang Qi didn't think the fish would survive after seeing how limp and motionless it had been earlier, but in only a short amount of time it was brimming with energy again. Hello, can't you get it right? I'm not sneezing, I'm saying hi. Li blew an annoyed bubble at Wang Xi. Oh well, it was pointless. It wasn't like he could make humans understand fish. Swishing his tail hurt too much, so he could only continue blowing bubbles. But this only served to deepen Wang Xi's misunderstanding. Concerned about the fish's excessive amount of bubble blowing, he asked Prince Jing carefully, Your Highness, is the fish sick? Why does it keep sneezing? You're the one sneezing. Your whole family is sneezing. I kind of wish Prince Jing could hear his thoughts because his thoughts sound like a very entertaining place to be. Before Prince Jing could react, poor misunderstood Li Yi blew a long string of angry bubbles. Wang Xi immediately grew nervous. Your Highness, is that fish choking on water? It's a fish. My goodness. Okay. I have Siamese fighting fish and they can do tricks. Oh, that's cool. Absolutely no idea how Siamese fighting fish look like, but I'm imagining Siamese cats fighting fish fighting each other. Oh my goodness. Um, yeah, my aunt has. I think they're called discus fish or disc fish. I'm not sure, but they're like amazing. But I know that they can be quite temperamental as well, depending. Um, Prince Jing listened silently. He might not be able to speak, but he wasn't deaf or blind. His mind was as sharp as a knife. How could a fish sneeze or choke on water? Wang Shi was clearly just trying to coax a smile out of him. That being said, this fish, it was a little too lively. Wu Tianqi had never seen a fish this animated before. As he gazed down at the fish that kept blowing bubbles in the porcelain tank and the leaf blanketed over its body, his lips involuntarily twitched upward into a smile. Master, Prince Jing, look over there, over there. Lying under the blanket, made moving a little cumbersome, Li Ye hesitated for a brief moment before abandoning the leaf blanket he had acquired not long ago to swim happily towards Prince Jing. The second task in the main quest was to interact with the tyrant. Despite all the bubbles he'd blown just now, no prompts had popped up, so the system must not count that as an interaction. This fish's scamming system never told him what constituted interacting. Liu had to just keep throwing things at the wall and hope one of them would stick. He had barely come face to face with Prince Jing before now, so he really had to take advantage of this opportunity and complete the second task in one go. It was strange though. Prince Jing was born mute and couldn't talk. Liu was a fish, and no one could understand him, effectively making him mute as well. In a way, he and Prince Jing had the same struggle, but since neither of them could speak, there was no way for them to communicate with each other. How were they supposed to interact? Leo went through his mental catalogue of tricks. As his eyes landed on the underwater plant, the cursed seaweed dance came to mind. Maybe he should do a bit of the seaweed dance for Prince Jing. What the hell is a seaweed dance? Like, I feel as if I'm talking Greek. I need to go look that up. Um, the more he thought about it, the more he warmed up to the idea. If he couldn't find a chance to interact with the prince, he'd just have to create one himself. But with his injuries this severe, he couldn't just sway his tail however he liked. He'd just have to keep his lower half still and focus on moving his upper half, which had seen the least amount of harm. Your upper half literally is almost just your head. How are you? What is the plan here? Imagining himself as a cute underwater plant, Nia just went for it, wriggling the top half of his body up and down in an exaggerated way. Guys, oh my goodness. Mu Tianqi and Wang Shi were at a loss for words. Prince Jing stared at the little carp. He was starting to think this fish was a little abnormal. That's an understatement. But Prince Jing's face didn't betray any of his thoughts. He wasn't someone who let his emotions show easily, no matter how surprised he was. Wang Shi, who was standing off to the side, felt like his eyes were playing tricks on him. He swallowed hard and said, "Your Highness, did this fish pull a muscle?" Okay, let's try and keep going. Oh, Wang Shi's first thought was that the fish, with all its weight, was trying to please Prince Jing. But Wang Gonggong had only ever heard of cats and dogs who were intelligent enough to connect with humans. Could fish be that clever too? Well, this one is. Logically, they couldn't. Therefore, Wang Gonggong was more inclined to believe the fish must have pulled a muscle. You gaped, sorry. You've pulled a muscle. Your whole family's pulled a muscle. I'm okay. Hold on. Oh, I'm dying here. What the hell am I reading? Oh my goodness. Okay, that was a lot. Like, usually I'm feeling hot because of my tea or because of an inappropriate scene in Erha, but not because I'm laughing way too much. Oopsie, I lost my place now. Oh, thank goodness, okay. Wang Shi was such a mood killer. Liu didn't want to dance anymore. The system didn't say a thing. Even though Liu had danced for so long, he stopped dancing out of spite and drifted down to rest on the bed of white rocks. Swimming was the first ability he'd unlocked after his transmigration. Now that he could float and sink as he wished, he felt incredibly comfortable. Prince Jing's eyes never left Liu. Seeing that the fish had stopped moving, he seemed to be contemplating something. Wang Shi immediately latched onto the new topic of conversation. "Your Highness, why did the fish stop moving?" He bristled. "It was so hard being a pet. Why was there always a hater?" Oh my goodness. Exercising great restraint, Liu Ye turned around. As much as he wanted to sulk, he had a task to complete. "Hey system, what counts as interacting?" Liu tried to call out to the system. If the seaweed dance wasn't enough, this was going to be way too hard. Perhaps the system was getting impatient too, because it decided to offer him a hint. Interacting involves a back and forth. Oh, that's gonna be interesting. Liu finally understood why, despite all his efforts, he wasn't able to complete step 2. This whole time, he was the only one moving vigorously, while Prince Jing remained unmoved. That couldn't be considered a back and forth at all. But how could he get Prince Jing to reciprocate? Liu sank deep into his thoughts. Not even the seaweed dance was enough to sway his tyrant master. Sob, sob, sob. It was much too hard being a fish. While Liu was preoccupied with his dilemma, Wang Shi stared at the fish, pondering. Wang Shi had served Prince Jing for many years, so he knew well that His Highness's countenance was cold and his heart colder. It was rare for him to care about anything or anyone, but Prince Jing had not only found and saved this little carp, he'd even brought it here with his own 2 hands. So what did the unusual act of saving the fish mean? It meant the fish had caught His Highness's interest. His Highness had taken a liking to this fish. I appreciate the fact that, like, obviously Wang Shi would have to have some deeper level of understanding, or at least some level of emotional intelligence, to be able to kind of interpret what the prince's meaning or intending with just a look. So I'm glad to see that it's actually being not displayed. Like, it's carrying through in the fact that he's also able to deduce that, okay, this fish is important for the prince, so even if I don't understand it, I'm not gonna like be rude about the fish or anything like that. Prince Jing had even ordered him to prepare the fish tank to put the fish into. Didn't all these signs point to him wanting to keep it as a pet? Wang Shi was so happy he couldn't help smiling. Who cared what kind of pet he wanted to keep? There was finally a hint of warmth in the ice-cold prince. Wang Shi made a few subtle comments, but didn't dare say anything too pointed. He was afraid that if he overstepped, Prince Jing's temper would flare up, and he wouldn't want the fish anymore. That was why Wang Shi kept beating around the bush. He noticed the prince's eyes hadn't left the little carp, steadily following its movements. While Prince Jing didn't react in any obvious way when the little carp wiggled around, he also didn't immediately turn around and leave. When the little carp stopped swimming, the prince's expression remained inscrutable, sorry. But the corner of his mouth that had lifted just a little fell back down. He was slightly unhappy. Wang Shi fretted on the inside as he watched the scene unfold before him. This isn't how you take care of a fish. You can't just look. I didn't think I'd be like warming up to Wang Shi so quickly, but here we are. Wang Shi guessed that Prince Jing had never kept a fish before, nor any other kind of pet, and was probably at a bit of a loss. He suggested, Your Highness, this fish, might it be hungry? Mu Tianqi shot a fleeting glance at him. Correctly interpreting his silence as a command for him to continue, Wang Shi explained with a smile. Humans lose energy when they're hungry. The lowly serpent is thinking perhaps fish are the same. Perhaps it'll have more strength when it's full. I already prepared some fish feed. Shall I feed some to it? Wu Tianqi mulled it over before giving a small nod. Damn it, I was hoping like he'd take the initiative to feed, but I guess that'd be too easy. Wang Shi bowed, then quickly produced 2 bamboo boxes from his sleeves. One was filled with red fish feed, the other with green fish feed. Each piece was the size of a grain of rice. As Prince Jing watched quietly, Wang Shi sprinkled a few pieces into the porcelain tank. Yu, who'd been deeply engrossed in his thoughts, suddenly smelled food. His stomach immediately growled, reminding him he hadn't had anything to eat in all the time he'd spent as a fish. Was there delicious food here? Li glanced around at his surroundings, his attention soon catching on to the flecks of red and green floating in the water. Whatever it was, it smelled amazing, somehow even more tantalizing than the delicacies he'd eaten as a human. He couldn't complete his quest on an empty stomach, Li reasoned, and immediately dashed towards the source of the scent, circling one of the red pieces. This seemed to be fish food. I mean, you are a fish, to be fair. He'd heard fish food was made from either flour or bugs. He didn't know which kind this was, but it smelled so good he really wanted to eat it. He cursed himself for acclimating to fish taste so quickly, but he was practically drooling. In the end, his hunger triumphed over his dignity. Ugh, how exactly did fish eat again? He approached cautiously, batting at the fish feed lightly with his fin. Suddenly, he felt an unyielding gaze on him. He looked up directly into Prince Jing's ink-black eyes, staring down at him without blinking. He froze. He'd originally wanted to use his fin to hold the fish feed and eat like a civilized person, but if Prince Jing noticed something was off, Prince Jing was mute. Sure, but his mind was still sharp as a dagger. Leo hurriedly chomped down on the fish feed, then dove under the safety of his leaf, too embarrassed to eat like a fish in front of Prince Jing. Poor thing. But for a moment I was like, how do you know he has a sharp mind? And then I remembered, like, he's read a book about him, so fair enough. Better to hide somewhere while he ate than get back to working on his quest. Mia gulped down a few bites, the fragrant food melting in his mouth. Thank goodness. It was made from flour and not bugs. But why did it smell like fish flavored shredded pork? Mm. Who cared as long as he had food? Fish flavored shredded pork was good, so what was there to complain about? He couldn't eat human food anymore, so this was actually a balm to his soul. He scarfed down the entire piece of red fish food, but his stomach was still rumbling. He decided to sneak out and grab a few more pieces. Hyper aware that Prince Jing was scrutinizing his every move and petrified that he might notice something unusual, Liu made sure to take only one piece per excursion. He would seize one, take it away, and only sneak out for another once he'd finished the one he already had. As he ate, he soon realized the red pieces tasted much better than the green pieces. The green pieces were a little bland. Prince Jing watched this, his gaze deep, as the little carp ate. For just a moment, he thought the way the little carp batted at the fish food looked almost human, but it happened so quickly he couldn't be sure. My goodness, the plot thickens. Okay, I think I don't know if we're gonna get through an entire new chapter, but I do want to read until we're on the hour at least. Um, so I think we did pretty good for today. Okay, chapter 5. The fish was petted! Oh my goodness. Progress, progress. We haven't gotten there yet, but progress. He's a smart one. Prince Jing was still watching the fish intently when Wang Shi handed him both boxes of fish food. Wang Shi's eyes were filled with anticipation. Having served Prince Jing for many years, Wang Shi knew exactly what his master wanted, without the prince having to say a single word. Smiling, he said sincerely, "Your Highness, this old servant has a few things to take care of, but the fish still seems to be hungry. Could you help me feed the fish?" Wang Shi is clearly very clever because he's like not being confrontational. Like, he's offering him an out by being like, "Oh, you'd be helping me out. I'm not suggesting you feed the fish, but it would be such a great help to me. So you don't have to admit that you want to feed the fish, but you can still feed the fish. Is that okay? Do you want to feed the fish?" Oh my goodness. Mu Tianqi paused for a second, surprised. Wang Shi pushed the boxes towards him and continued very seriously. There are two kinds of feed. The red one tastes like fish flavored shredded pork. Oh my goodness, okay. And the green one is mushroom and greens. The servant thinks the little carp seems to prefer the red one. Wu Tianqi couldn't help but agree. The little carp did seem to have a little more life when it ate the red feed. Wu Tianqi silently accepted the red feed box. Wang Qi smiled until his eyes looked like two crescent moons. After reminding Prince Jing not to overfeed the fish, he made up some excuse and left the two of them alone. Wu Tianqi hesitated, holding the box of fish feed. After all, he he hmm? After all, he was treading in unfamiliar waters here. Unfamiliar waters, you say? Down below, Liu waited and waited, but when it didn't seem like Wang Shi was going to feed him anymore, the hungry little carp swam up to the water surface, waiting expectantly. Liu and Prince Jing, fish and human, stared into each other's eyes. Sorry, the ridiculousness of that statement. Liu was startled. He hadn't expected to see Prince Jing. Then he remembered he was merely a fish. It didn't matter how long he stared at Prince Jing. The prince probably wouldn't notice. What was Prince Jing about to do? Liu couldn't figure it out. The tall, imposing youth couldn't speak, always keeping his thoughts hidden within those dark, fathomless eyes. Wu Tianqi stood in front of the tank for a full 10 minutes before he threw a handful of bread pellets into the water with a little too much force, nearly pelting Liu with a torrential downpour of fish food. Oh goodness. Liu gaped at Prince Jing in shock. He almost couldn't believe it. By the time he realized what had happened, his body had already instinctively launched itself at the fish food. Prince Jing had tossed it. Turning in a beautiful curve in the water, the little carp carefully held the food in his mouth. In his chest, his heart went pit-a-pat. Not only had the tyrant saved him, he even personally fed him. As soon as he swallowed the fish food, the system, which had been silent up until now, suddenly came to life. Congratulations, user. You've completed the second part of the More Pet System main quest, Tyrant's Priceless Pet Fish. Interact with the Tyrant. Congratulations. You will now receive the corresponding reward. Leah could have burst into tears. So this was what interacting meant? In one big gulp, he devoured the last of the food that Prince Jing had tossed in. Belly full and fit to burst, Liu drifted down to lie on the bed of snowy white rocks to take a quick nap. Anyone, human or fish, would feel sleepy after eating a full meal. Now that the second task was taken care of, Liu didn't think it would be too late for him to wait to collect his reward, and took a little nap first. Thankfully, although the experience had been frightening, nothing dangerous had happened. I don't know how happy Prince Jing is gonna be about him immediately going to sleep after eating. We'll have to see, I guess. Being the unconscious wingman. Other Danmei books, death, grief, etc. This book, cute, silly fish with potential death in the future, I feel like. Best wingman along Lang Shicheng. I I was not expecting him to be a wingman, but he's doing a very good job of it. Or I guess he's a fun man. I'm sorry, I will see myself out. Um, where are we? Mm. Lia couldn't fall asleep wherever he wanted when he had been. Oh, sorry. Liu couldn't fall asleep wherever he wanted when he'd been human, but he had no such problems now. As a fish, he could sleep however he wanted, upright or lying down. Very soon, Liu fell into the embrace of a dream. Recalling what Wang Shi had said, Prince Jing glanced at the little carp, then tapped on the tank with 2 fingers. Liu, who had been teetering on the precipice of sleep, was jolted awake by the sound. "What is it?" "I want to sleep. Some people still have injuries to recover from." If it hadn't been for the quests, Mia wouldn't want to have anything to do with the Tyrant at all. Having noticed that the fish was still lying limply on the rock, Prince Jing extended a hand. Mia, who was still attempting to fall back asleep, felt the water move. "What's happening?" Mia was immediately wide awake, his terror chasing away any notion of sleep. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Prince Jing's hand reaching into the tank. Mia flinched, fighting the urge to swish his tail. He was still injured, for one thing, so moving his tail hurt, and secondly, daring to swish his tail in Prince Jing's face would only mean one thing: a dead fish. Oh my goodness. Mia felt his heart strapped into a roller coaster, but to his surprise, Prince Jing did not immediately grab him. Instead, he nudged him lightly off the bed of snowy white rocks. Did Prince Jing not want him to go to sleep? He was utterly confused as Prince Jing's finger pushed him forward. Prodded by Prince Jing's finger, Leo swam around nearly the entirety of the tank. He didn't know what Prince Jing wanted. Fear slowly crept over his heart, but after a while, he realized the prince seemed perfectly content with nudging him around and didn't seem to want to do anything else. Leo's pulse gradually calmed down. Occasionally, he'd give a few lazy swishes of his fins as a show of cooperation. Inevitably, his soft, tender fin would brush against Prince Jing's finger. Mu Tianqi froze. His stare drilled holes into the insolent fish, who was completely unaware of what had just happened. If a person had dared to be so impudent, Prince Jing would have them torn limb from limb, without question. But this was a fish, not a person. There was no need to be so harsh. You didn't feel that way about a cat 2 seconds ago. Like, you were pretty damn mad about that cat. My goodness. Prince Jing's defenses were lowered, and he smirked, the corner of his lips lifting mischievously. The ear was splashing around in the water with his fins, and the tip of his tail felt hot. Immediately he felt an unnerving sensation emanating from back there. He turned his head to look. The Tyrant's expression was impassive as always, but his hand, the same hand that would kill without hesitation, what was it doing? "Ow, don't curl my tail around your finger. My private area is right there. It tickles. Don't just touch wherever you want. Hey!" The little carp's tail trembled violently. "Help!" He didn't think the Tyrant would pet a fish. Goodness. With Prince Jing pushing him along, Li Ye made several laps around the tank and steadily felt more and more energetic. At least the prince finally stopped and let him go. Li Ye swam by himself for a while and soon realized his stomach no longer felt bloated. Was Prince Jing forcing him to swim to give him a chance to digest the enormous meal he'd just eaten? There's no way, right? He thought, amused. He was pretty sure Prince Jing wasn't the kind of person who'd look out for a little animal. Leo added this incident to his collection of other unresolved mysteries, where it joined Prince Jing in saving his injuries and unconscious self. Prince Jing raised his eyebrows slightly as he realized his sleeve had gone wet. Leo thought Prince Jing would change immediately. After all, he was a prince, accustomed to a life of luxuries and riches. There was no way he'd allow himself to wear dirty clothes, even if it was just a wet sleeve. Prince Jing left shortly after, just as Li Ye expected. Li Ye could no longer see his face peering at him from above the tank. But, oddly enough, Li Ye didn't hear the sound of the door opening and closing. What kind of master would change by himself? Servants were always at their beck and call to help with things like that. Although Prince Jing couldn't speak, he could still open the door and order for someone outside to wait on him. Leo waited and waited, but he didn't hear anything. After the nap he'd taken, his tail didn't throb so much, and he felt a lot better. It seemed like fish recovered faster than humans. Either that, or it was because he had the system. Leo decided to try using his tail again. Unless Prince Jing walked over himself, it was practically impossible to see the prince from Leo's position inside the fish tank. Leo wanted to confirm that the prince wasn't in the room anymore before collecting his reward from the more pet system, just in case the prince wanted to play with him again, only to find an unconscious fish. Leo tested his tail, switching it back and forth a few times. It really didn't hurt anymore. He summoned every bit of power he had, and, with a swoosh, managed to launch himself high into the air. Before his leap of faith, Leo had already mentally prepared himself to take a good look at the world outside the tank. The room was just as he imagined, ornate and magnificent, befitting a prince. I thought he was in the prince's room, but I'm pretty sure that was confirmation. That's Prince Jing's. He's still in the room. Okay. Oh, there's Prince Jing, sorry. The moment he leapt into the air, he spotted Prince Jing's figure standing only a few meters away. His black robes had yet to be fastened completely, so Li Ye had an unobstructed view of the smooth lines of his muscles. Dark eyes gazed towards the little carp, shocked and stunned. For a moment, man and fish stared at each other. Oh no, how did he manage to catch Prince Jing in a state of undress? He thought he would have finished changing by now. In addition to overestimating how quickly Prince Jing could get changed, Liya must have been confused and underestimated the complexities of historical clothing. Now it looked like he was some pervert spying on a beautiful man. You're a fish, calm down. Though, to be fair, Prince Jing has made some strange logical leaps recently that have been quite accurate, so who knows, he might actually catch on to the fact that you aren't just a fish at the most inconvenient of times. Liya quickly took it all in, everything he was supposed to see, as well as everything he wasn't. His face burned. He twisted his body and dove back into the fish tank with a little splash. Why didn't this Prince Jing hide behind something if he was going to change? Alright, fine, there was only a fish in the room with him. There was no need for him to hide anything. Liya darted under his leaf blanket as soon as he heard Prince Jing's footsteps approaching. Prince Jing may not have realized Liya had been looking at him, but he wasn't blind. He definitely would have noticed a fish jumping straight out of the tank, right? The prince definitely noticed. Liya lay there, heart in his throat, trying his best to pretend he was a normal fish. By now, Prince Jing had already arrived at the tank. Once again, he felt the uneasy sensation of the prince's piercing gaze on him. It felt like there was someone pointing a blade at his back. Liya discreetly turned round so that his tail was facing Prince Jing, in an effort to cover up what he did. Your Highness, Your Highness! Before Prince Jing could do anything, Wang Shi's an anxious call came from outside. Liya let out a sigh of relief. Prince Jing fastened his jade buttons and took one last long look at the suspicious little fish. Then he strolled to the door and pulled it open. Wang Shi greeted him respectfully. Your Highness, the Emperor has sent someone. But that sounds foreboding already. The Emperor was Prince Jing's father. The prince's expression turned serious as he followed Wang Shi out to accept the imperial edict. Prince Jing was finally gone. Liu was delighted, but he stayed as still as a statue, pretending he didn't understand anything that was happening outside his fish tank. After the sound of the footsteps faded into the distance, he swam to a quiet corner of the tank and quickly entered the system. The second part of the priceless pet fish quest was complete, which meant he could finally collect his reward of inventory space. And while he was at it, he also had to take a look at what the third step was. At this rate, he'd surely be turning back into a human any day now. Leo was very pleased with himself. Well, sir, we at least have another 400 pages to go, so I don't think that's the case. Okay, we are 2 pages away from the end of a chapter, so would you guys mind if I quickly finish up this chapter? I know we're a little bit over the 2-hour mark. Man and fish stare at each other is not a phrase I thought I'd ever read in a novel. Yes, and I've read it multiple times already. And we're on page 56, I think. Oh, goodness. Um, I don't know if I should continue reading. Are you guys okay with it? Mm. Oh, I'm suddenly very hot. Okay, let's just keep going. Okay. He had just entered the system when a prompt popped up asking him if he would like to check out his inventory. Lee selected yes, overjoyed, and his inventory immediately opened up before his eyes, giving him a clear view of the inside. All Li's praises caught in his throat as soon as he laid eyes on it. He thought his inventory would at least be the size of a storage room, but this was about the size of an adult's palm. I'm just picturing his inventory being like a fish tank sized treasure chest, if that makes sense. No way, what's the point of having such a tiny space? So stingy. The system replied, since the user thinks the space is too small, would you like to give up your reward? Leah had almost forgotten the system could read his thoughts and shook his head hurriedly. No, it's better than nothing. There is currently only one inventory slot, the system informed him. SideQuest can increase inventory slots. That's more like it. At least I can get more. But this was also the space was all the space he had for now. What could he put in it? At most, he could probably fit 1 or 2 things in there. Despite having only been a fish for a few hours, Li had entertained a lot of secret daydreams about this space. He had envisioned being able to store an enormous pile of fish feed, a bunch of medicine for his injuries, or even a large tank of fresh water for emergencies. That way, he could be a rich and carefree fish. But there were 2 problems. First, he hadn't managed to acquire any of those things, and second, it turned out he had a tiny amount of space. For a moment, he was at a loss for what he could even do with the little resources he had. Meanwhile, Prince Jing had stepped out to receive an imperial edict. But who knew when he'd be back? He didn't have much time, so he just had to accept the space now and figure it out later. Yeah, but I'm curious about the next quest though. A ray of light shot out from the inventory, landing somewhere near Liu's left fin. When he took a look after the light had faded, he realized one of the scales beneath his fin had changed into the color of jade. Ooh! Okay, that's promising. So that is where we are ending it for today. We are at the start of chapter 6 for anyone who is following along and maybe wants to keep their place. But yeah, that was fantastic. Like, that is just as funny as everyone's been promising it would be. I am not at all disappointed. I feel like it's so ridiculous, but the wonderful thing is it's so self-aware. Like, that's the same reason why I enjoy MXTX as much as I do, and especially why I think Scum Villain Self-Saving System is as much of a success as it is the self-awareness, and this has it in droves. I just want to see, read away, go for it. Didn't realize it's been 2 hours already. Yay! I mean, I hope that's a good thing. But yeah, so I will be seeing you guys again probably on Friday for the next read along, and then the timing might change up to be a little bit earlier. I'm thinking about 3 hours earlier than our usual start time, but I'm not set on that yet. So, it's a great reprieve from things like Urha and Case File, very lighthearted. Yeah, like I think actually reading this at the same time as Urha or Case File might not be a bad idea, just to kind of like even out your mood a little. I haven't read Case File yet, but I have heard that it is quite grueling, so I can only imagine. Um, but yeah, again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you hopefully on Friday for the next read along. 再见。